Well, if you'll allow me a minute to give you an explanation on what's going on involving the terrible crash of that KC-135 over in western Iraq, the Air Force has now released the names of the individuals involved. They were Major John Kleiner, 33 years old, out of Alabama; Captain Ariana Savino, 31, out of Washington State; Technical Sergeant Ashley Pruitt, 34, out of Kentucky; Captain Seth Koval, out of Mooresville, Indiana; Captain Curtis Angst, 30 years old, out of Ohio; and Tech Sergeant Tyler Simmons, 28, also out of Ohio. The Air Force will be conducting the first investigation, and that is going on currently. And the 135 that did survive, that made it back to Tel Aviv, that crew is being intensely interviewed by U.S. Air Force investigators, trying to find everything they knew, everything they could find out about what occurred in that fatal flight, what they saw, what they observed, where everybody was supposed to be, because that's another issue that's going to come up. Where was everybody supposed to be, and where were they? Now, you saw the picture of the damage to the rear rudder of the aircraft, the one that made it back, and you'll notice a great big giant chunk has been sheared off, and it looks like it was sheared off horizontally. When the engineers get to looking at that tail section, they will be able to tell you if it was sheared off going forward or going backward. If the shear tends to go backward, then the accident occurred when something hit that rudder from the front, which means you could have planes passing this way. Could have gone this way. Now, if that's the case, one plane was in the wrong altitude, or maybe both planes were. We don't know yet. We don't know what the scheduled altitude was for both of the planes and whether they were on those altitudes when the crash occurred. One of the things that people have to understand, there's been talk, and I've seen a video of a couple of Navy guys talking about this, talking about refueling between two KC-135s. KC-135s don't have that capability. There may be a couple of aircraft out there that have been modified to do that, but as a rule, and as a former KC-135 aircraft commander, I can tell you, we don't get fuel, we give fuel. That's our job. KC-135s do not, as a rule, and that's rule about 99%, do not have the ability to receive gas. That takes additional training that most tanker pilots, all tanker pilots, frankly, don't have, unless they fly in another aircraft that has that capability. Now, that being said, another thing that needs to be considered is this. When those aircraft get up above 18,000 feet, we call it flight level 180, and we call them flight levels up above that area, each plane must set their altimeter to 29.92, 2992. That's standard elevation. Once you're above 18,000 feet, everybody's altimeters are all set to the same number, 2992. That way, everybody's plane registers identically for what it is as far as their altitude goes. So if you're supposed to be at flight level 210, which is 21,000 feet, at 2992, that's what your altimeter is going to tell you. That's the altitude you're on. And somebody else at a different altitude with the same setting, they're going to be at a different altitude. It's setting everything identical, so no one's on a different altimeter, because an altimeter will actually determine at what height you are. That's just the way that works. So we will find out what's going on. And then there's another issue that came up. I've heard people say, well, if they have a black box, like they do in the airliners. When I flew the KC-135, they did not. I repeat, they did not have black boxes. However, over the years, there's been numerous upgrades to the KC-135, most involving the panel, the installation of GPS, the glass cockpit, if you will, those things. Could the Air Force have installed a black box into the KC-135s? I do not know. That's a question that needs to be asked, but it will be answered once the information comes out from the Air Force investigation team. Those are some of the issues that we're working on. But the truth is, right now, it's still a mystery. And you'll probably get your first report in around 30 days. It'll be preliminary from the Air Force, but a final accident report, can take up to 2 years to have it generated. But fortunately, they have a crew they can talk to and see exactly what was going on with them and hopefully we can learn about what's going on. The fateful situation, we lost 6 aircrew members, and that's unfortunate. But in war, things happen. But now, can we learn something from the event? We hope we will, because trying to prevent accidents is the number one thing that safety is all about. And what happened? Well, right now we don't totally know, but hopefully soon we will. And the answers will come out, and America will be informed. That's what's going on, folks. And now you know.